الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing our lessons on Usul Fiqh. Last week we spoke about أحكام الوضعية. الأحكام الوضعية, the legislative rulings. So طيب, who can remind us what's أحكام الوضعية? حكم وضعي, what does it mean? To Usul Fiqh, you have to memorize, you have to review. So these are examples. أسباب, شروط, موانع. What does it mean حكم وضعي? So it's a ruling to let us know if the action we did is sahih or fasid, valid or invalid. Okay? So that they're like dalalat, signs or alamat, that the action is accepted or rejected, or it's due or it's not due, like these kinds of things. So many ways we know ahkam wad'iyya or hukm wad'i, the legislative ruling of Allah, to inform us, to make ikhbar, information that this action you have done is acceptable or unacceptable, or what its conditions are needed for its acceptability or causes, or when you cannot do it, preventatives. See, so this is wad'iyya. And in today's lesson we're going to look at ahkam at-taklifiyya. So who remembers what is that then? Hukm at-taklifi? It's the opposite. So what is it then? The rule is related to a person's actions. So sometimes we call it hukm or ahkam at-talabiyya. As we're going to see, talabiyya because it's required from you. Whereas wad'iyya is not required of you. Allah put it there as a sign for you to know what you did was accepted or not. طيب, how many then? We mentioned last week, أحكام الوضعية, how many there? We mentioned 5 last week. Asbab, what does that mean? The means for an action. So when you have a cause, you have the ruling. No cause, no ruling. Okay, next. On this side. What was the second one we did? Sharat and shurut, conditions. Okay, so what does that mean? Things you have to do for the action, usually before, right? You come before an action, you have to do it for the action to be valid. And without them, the action won't be valid. But with them, the action is still not done yet. You still have to do it. So I do wudu. Wudu is shart al-salah. So I have to do wudu. But if I did wudu, I didn't do yet salah. So you're ready for salah. That's called conditions. Every action needs the conditions. And asbab, its causes. Next. Mawani'. Mani' wal mawani'. Preventatives. What does that mean? A preventative. Al-mani' wal mawani'. So the opposite of conditions are preventatives. It's opposite. So the things you have to do without the action is not accepted, it's called shart wa shurut. And things you have to avoid for this to be accepted or has to be absent is called the mani'. So for example, from the conditions of salah is tahara, wudu. And for a woman, a preventative is menstruation. Clear? She has to have wudu, but she can't have wudu if there's menstruation. She can't pray without being in a state of purity. And once she's outside the state of menses, then she does her wudu. Shart, mani', the opposite, right? These are opposite each other. Next. So these 3, you need these for action to be valid. Cause, sabab, was shart, condition, and you have to avoid the mani', mawani', and the preventatives. Then the action is going to be considered sahih, valid. And what does the validity mean then? How do you know an action is valid? 3 things. Meet the conditions, avoid the preventatives, fulfill the pillars. We have to memorize it. Action is sahih if you do all the preconditions, meet the conditions, avoid the preventatives, and fulfill all the pillars. That's it. If you prayed salah with shurut salah, wa arkan salah, and you didn't do the mawani', the preventatives, and of course anything else that would have prevented the salah being accepted, nullifiers, and if someone forgot some of the pillars, or the obligations, salah is still valid. If you forgot them, you can do sujood sahwi, you forgot a lot of them, but the benefit, those 3 are the main things. Of course, a person also has to do the other things, which we're going to see, obligations. But obligations not like pillars. Pillars, you need them. Obligations, you need them. They can be pardoned if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, but due to things like forgetfulness or accident. From this we see the ahkam wada'iyya very important, the legislative rulings, because they allow us to know the validity of our action, the invalidity, but also upon who has to do the action, at what time you have to do it, etc. Just a few points before continuing in today's lesson. The ulama add others as well. So we said last week there's 5, some scholars add 6, 7, 8. So just for our own benefit, some ulama add number 6, the illah. Illah, it means juristic rationale, or al-illah could be translated as the purpose behind the ruling. Illah. Al-illah, then we have the sabab. What's the difference? One brother asked that question. What's the difference between sabab and illah? Illah is what the ruling revolves around. So in many ways, the illah and the sabab are the same thing. And according to many of the ulama, they don't differentiate between the word illah and sabab, in the sense that usually the word illah can mean sabab. So for example, what is the cause or the illah for alcohol or intoxicants being prohibited? The answer, intoxication. So anything that intoxicates is prohibited. Why? Muskir is haram, intoxicants, because they do iskar, they intoxicate. So the intoxicants are prohibited due to the illah of intoxication. Can you call that sabab? Yes. You could say the sabab, the reason for intoxicants being prohibited is because of intoxication. You can call illah wa sabab. So let's give it a simple way to remember. Every illah is a sabab, but not every sabab is illah. Khalas, take that. And you write down, that will save you time. Every illah is a sabab, but not every sabab is a illah. Anytime you hear the word illah, it's a sabab, it's a cause. Illah is a purpose or juristic rationale. Illah is a sabab, but not every cause is a illah. So this will be useful later on, right? Maybe not now, but later on it becomes useful. So every illah is a sabab, not every sabab is a illah. Okay, so later on we'll find out why that's important. Number 7, scholars, they also add to the list of the ahkam al-wada'iyya, the legislative rulings, 2 words. Number 1, al-azima, and number 2, al-rukhsa. Al-azima, it literally means determination, something determined, something fixed. Azm and azima means resolve. But al-azima in Usul Fiqh just means a ruling in its original form. The ruling of Allah as is. It's not, doesn't have anything to do with excuses. It's called al-azima. So for example, when you prayed Isha 4 rak'ahs, what kind of hukum is that? Ruling, the ulama, they call it al-azima. That's the ruling of Allah. It's not related to an excuse or allowance or some kind of issue. Al-rukhsa means allowance. So it's a ruling of Allah when there's excuses. So now you can see every ruling we get is azima. It only becomes rukhsa when there's a udhr, a reason. Should I give you an example? When I go out to travel, how much rak'ahs do I pray dhuhr? My 4 becomes 2. 4 dhuhr is called azima. That's how you're supposed to pray it. But now you're a traveler, you get to do 2. What is that called? Rukhsa. Allah gave you allowance. So if the ruling is based on like excuse or allowances, it becomes rukhsa. This is more important. Rukhsa is always mentioned as the opposite of azima. They need to come together. So have you noticed when the ulama say, oh, someone so went for a travel, he has rukhsa, he has allowance. When you're wondering, what does that mean? It means you could do 2 rak'ahs. Or they say, someone so traveled, he can break his fast. He has a rukhsa. What does that mean? Allowance. Otherwise, what was the original ruling? You had to pray 4, or you had to fast Ramadan. So rukhsa means allowances of Allah. Azima means initial ruling of Allah without excuses. The only reason why this is useful is when the ulama they talk about whether or not you can take the rukhsa of Allah, the rukhas, they always try to find out, are there actions where there's allowances, and what are those allowances and rules? So just to give you an example that came up last week, we said if you go for a travel, you can shorten your prayer. So how do we talk about that in Usul al-Fiqh? We say as-safar huwa illatul qasr, or as-safar huwa sabab al-qasr. Safar, travel, is the sabab for shortening, or the safar, the travel, is the illah for shortening. It's the language. Now someone will say, okay, when I travel, I can shorten the prayer. طيب. What is that shortening called then? Rukhsa. You see? So someone asks you, what's the ruling on shortening the prayer when you travel? You're going to say traveling is the cause for shortening. Safar is the sabab for qasr. Okay. And when you go for travel, now you can do 2 rak'ahs. That's called rukhsa. You have an excuse. You guys with me so far? This is the language the ulama they're using. The only reason why they're doing this so they can understand when the ruling applies, when it doesn't. Right now we're just like ahkam wad'iyya, right? If I went for travel, the first question is going to someone say, are you on a travel? Yes. So now you can shorten. But some ulama say, wait. Because it's an allowance, you have to make sure you have meets the conditions of the allowance. What's your travel for? You see, that's where the conversation comes. When the ulama, they said you can't do, for example, some of them said you can't do qasr for safar ma'siyah. You go into Las Vegas, no qasr for you. Why they said that? Anyone understand? What's the connection? They said because you're doing a rukhsa, you're taking allowance. Allowances of Allah are only allowed when they're permissible. The travel has to be permissible, otherwise you don't get to have Allah's allowance. Now it makes sense. Okay, that's why they're talking about what kind of travel you're going to. Because it's a rukhsa, it's not azima. You're not supposed to pray 2, you're supposed to pray 4. So if you're going for halal travel, they said, okay, you get to do 2. Haram one, no, you don't get it, you do 4. And the reason why is because rukhsa, they're talking rukhas. Everyone's with me so far? This is why now you can start seeing the reasoning behind these rulings. So when some of the ulama, they say, okay, somebody went out for hunting, or somebody went out for, a picnic, can he shorten the prayer? The ulama are going to say, that's a safar mubah. So yes, you can. That's jumhur ulama. But some ulama, they don't do that. As I mentioned, Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, they said no. Al-illa for the safar, or the qasr, the cause for shortening prayer is safar. Whatever safar you did. Ma'siyah, wa ta'a, wal mubah, doesn't matter. And that's a stronger opinion. Why? Because if you're going to go for a travel, if you traveled, you get to shorten. Right? It's not going to help you if you're doing sin, right, by shortening the prayer. Right? But they're still allowed to. So the reason why the conversation comes, last week we were talking about the sabab, but we never talked about rukhsa. Now you can say, oh, no wonder the some ulama didn't allow everyone to travel or every travel to be shortening. The only allowed one in which the rukhsa, the allowance, can be met, which is when it's permissible. Because they're saying you're getting allowances, you can't have allowance if you're doing haram. But what's more correct? If travel is the sabab or the illah, the causation for shortening, anytime you go for safar accounts. Clear? This is a stronger view, more consistent with usul and more consistent with a person. And Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, others, they use the generality of the evidences to show that there's no differentiation between ma'asiyah, disobedience or not. Making sense a little bit? So the only reason why we need to rukhsa or rukhas is when do these allowances Allah gave us for shortening the prayer, breaking the fast, when do they apply, when they don't? So how come they're part of ahkam wad'iyyah? Because they're letting you know when can you shorten, when can you not. When can you break your fast, when can you not. See, it's not telling you should I fast or not. Allah says, "Man shahida minkum ash-shahra falyasum." You have to fast Ramadan, but He's telling you if you're traveling, you're off the hook. That's the point why we need to know these things. The last one on the side of wad'iyyah is the terminology of on time or off time, al-qada wal-ada. It's going to come later next week. But when it comes to ibadat, when you pray on time, the ulama, they call it al-ada. Al-ada means performance on time. You did it on time. Al-ada, I did it on time. And if I missed the time, it's called qada. I'm sure most of us have heard that. I have to do qada. And they're praying, what does that mean? He's making up a fast, making up a salah, making up sunnah. Qada. Qada means I missed the time for either a real reason or not good reason. So we all know al-qada. Now we have to know first rule, al-ada. So right now we pray Isha. What was this? We prayed Isha bil-ada. Yani we prayed on time. So it's called al-ada. We did it on time. Now imagine somebody, he was going to pray Isha, they fell asleep, became Fajr. What is he doing? Isha qada. He's making it up. Because he missed it because he fell asleep. Qada means make up. Al-ada means on time. Then the last word, al-i'ada. Al-i'ada means repeat. Al-i'ada, to repeat. Okay, so I'm praying Isha right now. I broke my wudu. I have to go to wudu room, make wudu and come back. What am I doing now? I'm doing my Isha Again, al-i'ada, repeating. Or I prayed the whole Isha, then I found out I don't have wudu. I did ada, so I'm praying on time, but because I missed the condition, I have to repeat. So al-i'ada, there you go. You can repeat illa bidalil. The problem some people do, he did one salah, another salah. No, you can't pray one salah twice in a day. Hayd bi Umar, you can't. Unless you nullified it. So if you broke the salah legitimately, or nullified it on time, then you repeat it. But if you missed the whole time, then it's called qada. Why is this terminology useful? It's only useful to know when we want to determine what a person is doing, if he woke up late, or if we missed this, and we'll see later, the qada and ada has value. But the rule is you have to do the ibadat on their time, whatever time Allah gave us, either spacious or limited. We'll see next week how many times are there. So remember that term. If you prayed on time or did action in its time, due time, al-ada, if you missed its time, whether legislatively or otherwise, it's called al-qada. And if you had to repeat it because you broke one of the conditions or nullified it, you're doing al-i'ada, repeat. Today in the Q&A, someone asked a question, praying by yourself in the saf. Right? The ruling on praying in a salah by yourself, when there's room in the first row, but you went to the second row and prayed by yourself. The most correct opinion is, salah is invalid. La salat li munfaridin khalf as-saf. There's no salah for the one who prays by himself or behind the sufuf for no reason. There's gaps, there's space. He just wants to pray in the middle. Salah is invalid. Because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw a man doing that, what did he do? فَأَمَرَ أَنْ يُعِيدَ. He told him, do it again. Al-i'ada. Why? Because you missed one of the rules of a jama'ah. That's not a jama'ah. You see how the terminology comes. Another man, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw him made wudu. He's missing a little bit on his foot, a little dry space. So what did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam do? Go back and repeat your wudu. Al-i'ada. Go back, you missed the place. So that's where we get the concept of repeating. So you only repeat when you broke the action legitimately. But because the first 5 we took last week is more important than these 3, many ulama, when they talk about ahkam wad'iyya, they don't mention these 3, they mention it later. Today we're not talking about that, we're talking about ahkam at-taklifiyya and mostly taklif. Today's discussion will be about taklif, because you need to know what it is before you get to this wording. Let's begin with the term at-taklif. When we hear the word at-taklif, all it's telling us is that somebody is required to do something. Somebody is required of them to be doing something. The ulama said the technical meaning of a taklif, al-khitabu bi-amrin aw nahyin. When Allah addressed somebody with a command or prohibition. The command or prohibition. So taklif is being charged or being put responsible for a command or prohibition. Everybody's with me? What makes fiqh special than aqidah? Anyone knows? Difference between fiqh and aqidah? What does aqidah deal with? I'tiqad. What does i'tiqad deal with? Al-akhbar, reports. And what does fiqh deal with? Al-af'al, amr wa nahi. You guys with me? What's the difference between fiqh and aqidah? Why is aqidah called fiqh al-akbar? Because it has to do with the beliefs. And beliefs are important. But what is fiqh? Akhbar. What do you believe authentically or inauthentically about Allah? So that's why when Allah, we have to believe malaika, khabar. Allah, it's a report. Reports, you have to believe they're right or they're wrong. So Trinity, wrong. Tawheed, correct. Angels exist. Jinn exist. So that's called akhbar, reports. When someone tells you about a khabar or report, you only have 2 choices. Either you accept it or reject it. That's called aqidah. Fiqh doesn't do with aqidah. Fiqh is about do, don't do. So what do you have then? Amr wa nahi. Amr wa nahi. That's why fiqh is all about ahkam taklifiyya. Do this, don't do that, recommended, don't not recommended. It's all to do with af'al. That's what the ulama say, the very foundation of a'mal then is taklif. Who has to do the actions? And what are the commands? And what are the prohibitions? So fiqh is so unique because Allah is telling you, pray salah, aqimu salah. And don't eat pork. And cover your awrah. And be good to your parents. Commands and prohibitions. So what is taklif? Al-khitabu bi-amrin aw nahi. Any address that deals with commands and prohibitions. Or simple terms, any kind of wording or any kind of ruling that has to do with commandments and prohibitions. So that's why most of us, we understand, most of fiqh is looking at, is this something wajib or mustahab? or makruh or haram. Mubah is the asl, right? For most of the cases. So why is this important? Always think fiqh to do with commandments and prohibitions. It's so interesting too, because it shows you again the beauty of Islam. Islam is a religion that has to do what we have to believe with and what we have to do in relation to Allah. Now that we know what taklif is, commandments and prohibitions, the address of Allah, who is the mukallaf? The person who has been commanded or prohibited, it's called in fiqh, usul al-fiqh is called al-mukallaf. Al-mukallaf. This person has been charged by Allah or been told by Allah to do or don't do something. Al-mukallaf. And so this is very important because the foundation of ahkam at-taklifiyya is taklif. Without it, so for example, scenario. You see somebody who lost their mind entirely. Become not mentally ill and certain mental illnesses. Tamaman, he lost the aql, absolutely. Do we tell them to pray? Do we tell them to fast? Why we don't say that? We tell them, this person, غير مكلف. He's not mukallaf. He doesn't have to pray. And there's no sin on him. Another person, like many of us, if I'm sitting down and salah comes in, you have to tell me, come pray. So what is then the mukallaf? Two things. Al-aqilu al-baligh. Anybody who's sane, al-aqil, al-baligh, reach the age of puberty. These two. So very simple. Remember, al-mukallaf, the person who's legally responsible in Islam, aqilul baligh or balighul aqil. You have al-aql, you're sane, wal-balagh, al-bulugh, and you reach the age of puberty. Al-baligh, al-aqil, or aqil, al-baligh. So easy to remember these two. These are the foundations of responsibility. Are you sane? Are you reached the age of puberty? Okay, you're legally responsible in the Sharia. And there's one more the ulama add. Anyone knows? Yeah? Yeah, we're going to come to those are underneath these. There's one more condition is important. We all made Islam. We're all Muslims. Islam, Muslim. Al-Muslimu al-aqil baligh. That's mukallaf. So if you're a Muslim, check mark. Aqil, check mark, baligh, you gotta pray. You miss one of these three, no salah for you. You guys with me? No, see, someone missing these three, no salah. But there's levels, we're gonna get there. So you have to understand why this foundation. We're talking about ahkam al-taklifiyya. Allah wants you to do or don't do. Who's Allah talking to? The Muslim, al-aqil, al-baghil, Muslim, who has sanity, who's age in puberty. You're in the conversation. You're missing these. You have a preventative, you have to either come into Islam or gain your sanity or reach the age of puberty. Everybody's with you so far. It's very simple but very important. And we'll look at a scenario in a second. Therefore, what Allah wants from this person is either to do something or avoid something. Amr, commandments means do it. Prohibitions means avoid it. Hence, fiqh can be broken into two overarching types. Al-af'al wa turuk. The do's and the don'ts. Af'al is what do you do? What turuk, what you're not allowed to do. An example, Allah wants us to pray. Af'al. Allah says don't commit zina. At-turuk. Allah says eat halal. Al-fi'l. Allah says avoid najasa. At-turuk. Avoid. Avoidments are ibadah, right? When you don't do haram, it's ibadah. We always forget. It's ibadah. You have to have niyyah. It's important. When some of us want to do something haram, but put a niyyah there. As we'll say later, you get hasanat. طيب, so fiqh really is about these issues. Hence, majority of fiqh, and usul of fiqh, deals with ahkam al-taklifiyya. Why? Because it's all about do this, don't do this. This is recommend, not recommend. It's all af'al wa nawahi. طيب, principle. Here's the principle. The intent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by way of the commandments and the prohibitions is to bring about benefit and to deflect harm. All commandments in the Sharia, all prohibitions in Sharia are only there to bring about benefits and to deflect harm. Anytime Allah tells you to do something, there's a maslaha wal manfa'ah, a benefit. And anytime Allah says stay away from it, there's a harm in there, mafsada. Allah wants to avoid it. And any type of difficulty that might be coming from the Sharia is not intended by the legislator. A third one's important. Any difficulty you may find in doing what you're supposed to do or avoiding what you're not supposed to do, if there's difficulty in there, it's not intended by itself. It comes with it, but it's not intended. It means Allah doesn't want difficulty on us, but it's part of responsibility. مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ Right? Allah didn't put in our religion, alaykum fi deen haraj, no haraj. Inna had deen yusr. Allah doesn't want difficulty. But some actions are difficult. So some people, when they heard this, they said, if Allah wants benefit, why He make us pray Fajr? It's hard. That has a maslahah, a manfa'ah, that needs to be achieved by way of it. I'm going to get something more from there. So let's remember these principles. Any commandments or prohibitions in Sharia is for what? Overarching benefit and to prevent harm. Right? تحصيل المصلحة والمنفعة ودفع المفسدة. And any harm that comes by way of these is not intended by the legislator, but it's part of it because that's the nature of commandments and prohibitions. Okay, like right now we have to go to work. Someone say, I don't like to go to work, but the maslahah is way greater. You never heard someone say, I'm not going to go to work. He knows the consequences. But the Sharia, Allah didn't put difficulty that's too difficult, nor one that's too easy. It's in the middle. So that's why Allah says, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Hence, nothing in the Sharia we can't do. But scholars, some of them, like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, in Majmu' Fatawa, he said we shouldn't call it ahkam taklifiyya. There's no taklif in the Sharia. Taklif means burden. Don't say that. It's not good to say that. Ahkam taklifiyya is not good because it means burden. There's no burden in this deen. In had deen yusr. So he has an argument. But many ulama said no. Because لا يكلف الله نفسا وسعها. It's not a burden, it's a responsibility. So taklif is okay. But some ulama call it ahkam al-talabiyya. The things you should and shouldn't do. Why? Because we don't want to ascribe taklif. Taklif is like burden of the deen. You see, some of us, we have that logic. Some of us, I have to pray, I have to do this. There's a maslahah. You keep forgetting. The reason why Allah wants you to pray. There's Jannah, man. We keep forgetting there's something coming out of there. And that's another benefit. Not in fiqh class, but aqidah class. Taklif is why you get Jannah, no Jannah. To get Jannah, you need taklif. Allah has to test us with do's and don'ts to get to Jannah or Jahannam. Allahu Akbar. When you look at this part, this is where the Sharia gets deep. The only reason why there's some things you have to believe in and you didn't see, and some things you have to do and live it hard to get the Jannah, and one's not going to get the Jannah. So some people, when they told you believe malaika, I never saw them, kafir, go to Jahannam. Another person said, I believe in them because Nabi Sallallahu said, Allah said it, go to Jannah. So wake up at Fajr, it's difficult, whoever wakes up goes to Jannah. One doesn't, go to Jahannam. Taklif is the key. That's why taklif is so powerful, right? And of course, in Aqidah class, but if you keep researching taklif, it's so amazing because it also teaches us how to deal with what's going on. Shaitan is tricking us by telling us so hard, so difficult. Forgetting that, there's something bigger. But the whole point of this, do's and don'ts. Everyone's with me? So who is the mukallaf? He has two things. Al-aqil, al-baligh, and then Muslim. Okay, next, conditions for taklif. What are the conditions they have to be met? We already saw one of them, or two of them. But let's finish. Scholars say in order for someone to be legally responsible in this religion, you need to meet the following conditions. Number one, you have to reach the age of puberty, al-bulugh. Number two, you have to have sanity, the aql. So we already got those two, puberty and sanity. And connected to that, understanding the khitab, understanding the deen, the capacity to understand the deen. So in the first three we have puberty, al-bulugh, al-aql, sanity, and number three, fahm, understanding of the deen, capacity to understand. Why? If someone cannot understand the deen, can he be legally responsible? Who is one of the four people going to come Yawm al-Qiyamah? Allah will test them that day. Who's one of them? The one who's deaf. Because he can't understand. He has some taklif, but he has missing. So he's limited in that angle. Or the one who lost his mind. Or the one who's an old sheikh. So fahm, you have to be understand the deen. Otherwise, rufi al-qalb an thalath. The three things that become the hadith. As-sighir hatta yahtarim. The one who's young until he reaches puberty. And it keeps going. So these three we have so far. Puberty, sanity, and the capacity to understand the legislation. Again, it doesn't mean someone has to be super smart or something, but ability to understand what Allah wants from him. So therefore, the rule is, whoever doesn't have puberty or the age of puberty, reach the age of puberty, don't have sanity, is not considered mukallaf. An example, majnoon. The majnoon, the person who's mentally ill or insane, out. He's outside the taklif. Yawm al-Qiyamah, he'll be tested. Right? Because you can't understand the Sharia, so you can't do it. Allah will test him Yawm al-Qiyamah. The next condition, al-qudra. the capacity to do it, ability, al-qudra fi al-imtithal. So the one who can do it, you have to be able. So if you have sanity, age of puberty, you understand the sharia, but you're ajiz, you're weak. In the angle, what Allah wants from you, there's no taklif on the ajiz. There's no. So لا تكليف إلا مع الإمكان. There's no legal responsibility unless there's capacity to be. You have to have قدرة, قادر, not عاجز. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. So a normal human being, he's already qadir, he can do it. If he's a normal human being, everything Allah wants from you is capacity, you're able to do. But sometimes something may happen. Fasting in Ramadan, an old man is aqil, baligh, but what's the problem? Ajiz, he's so old, he can't fast. He fasts, he's going to faint. He has to do fidyah. You see that? He doesn't have to fast. But you're going to say, akhi, he's mukallaf, aqil, baqil, Muslim, and ajiz, not qadir. Keep going. He needs, that's what the condition of fasting is, ability. Everybody's with me? But the Sharia never put the boundaries or the capacity for somebody too high. It's very easy. So the nature of Allah's deen is easy because Allah is al-Muhsin. He loves us. He wants good for us. So He doesn't make the deen very hard. 5 salah a day. Once a year fast. Once a year you pay zakat. Once in your lifetime you hajj. Look at this. Tawheed every minute. This is hard. People making it so hard. What's the difficulty? But the problem is, sometimes shaitan gets us. So this is important. Keep going. Next one. Al-ikhtiyar. The next condition, you have to have ikhtiyar, voluntary or willingness or ability to choose. So maybe ikhtiyar is like you have voluntary will. Voluntary will. As opposed to someone who's mukrahan, he's been forced. So we know even in this law, if somebody holds a gun to your head, whatever happens after that, it's not going to hold up in the court of law. Right? Because you're going against your will. The Sharia, if you do something, you have to be bikhtiyar. And why is this important? If someone forces you to do it, it doesn't count. And if you want to willingly do something, you have to intend it. Niyyah. Later on that comes, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ ikhtiyar. If I did a sunnah by accident, is it a sunnah? It is a sunnah, but I don't get a hasanat. I accidentally did a sunnah. You didn't know it's a sunnah. Yeah, you did it maybe because you felt like it, but you want a sunnah reward? Bin-niyya wal-ikhtiyar. So ikhtiyar is important. Again, all of us will meet these conditions. Voluntary willingness. And this is justice of Islam. Imagine someone today was forced. And that's why it doesn't make sense to force people to become Muslim. Where's ikhtiyar? Some of us have got to force people. No, we can't. So the person who did something by accident, Allah forgives them. طيب. And when it comes to the person being compelled, scholars, they have categorizations for it. So, inshallah, due to the time, we'll move away from that because there's conditions for when somebody is considered under duress or forced or not. There's conditions, but right now we're just going to move on. The next one is al-ilm bit-taklif. You have to have knowledge. You have to know and have the awareness that you're legally responsible. So, somebody was ignorant. He never knew that he had to pay zakat. Today he learned. Is he excused? He's excused for his ignorance. But now going forward, you have to make sure you're paying your zakat. And you're going to pay back what you missed. So before we're going, the knowledge of something is important. Even in this country, it's assumed people have awareness or basic knowledge of the law. Some laws you might not have known, some laws that come with the territory. So a Muslim should always be someone seeking knowledge. Why? So I can make sure I don't have ignorance, especially something that should know. But the rule in Islam is, it's possible for someone to be ignorant of even big things, let alone small things. It's possible, right? So that's why we accept ignorance as a preventative. We accept it. We say someone has knowledge, you have to have knowledge. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has justice. He does not punish a kafir until the message reaches them. Either someone gave them da'wah, or the Islam was spread in this area, or وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. That's justice. So how many we have so far? All right, so we mentioned we're going to repeat them. Number 1, bulugh, age of puberty. Number 2, al-aql, sanity. Number 3, al-fahm, understanding of the khitab, of the message, the basic understanding at least. And then we said, number 4, you have to have qudra, capacity to do the command or to avoid it. Hence, if I can't do what Allah wants to me, or I can't avoid it. All right. And number 5, al-ikhtiyar, choice, voluntary will. And number 6, we said was knowledge. So when you look at all of this, you could see in order for somebody to be mukallaf, he has to have, as we said, these conditions. It starts with being a Muslim, being sane, being reaching puberty, and other ones as well. And these are also going to serve as their preventatives from taklif, which leads to our next topic. What are the preventatives from somebody being mukallaf? And they're connected to what we already mentioned. If someone's missing some of these things. So what are some of the examples? Well, we said bulugh. So the opposite is saghir or sighar. Someone's too young. And before continuing, if we understand this topic, is very important. Once someone meets the conditions of taklif, you're mukallaf. Now, whatever Allah is telling you to do or not to do, avoid and do. Do what you're told, avoid what you don't have to do. If someone never met these conditions, what is our first job then to do? When we assess the person, he doesn't have these conditions, we're not going to command them or prohibit them, or we might guide them to that. So, for example, a kafir, as we're going to see now in a second, a kafir doesn't have Islam. So what are we going to do? Give him Islam, then tell him to pray Salah. Most of us don't tell him to pray first. Unless he wants to pray. If he wants to pray, that's okay. You can try it. Right? But if you want to count, you got to become Muslim. But imagine today you go to a kafir and tell him, okay, listen, you got to pray. Yeah, he's supposed to pray, but he's a kafir right now. He's not mukallaf. You see, they're going to see the implications of fiqh. These are important. So what are the preventatives then? The ulama, they call these, sometimes they call them mawani' or awarid. The preventatives or the hindrances for taklif. Number one, young age, under puberty. First one, under the age of puberty. So a child, the Prophet ﷺ told us, 3 people the pen is lifted. What's number one? As-saghiru, the young one until he reaches age of puberty. Hatta yahtalim. So that means a young boy or young girl under the age of puberty, do they have to pray? No. But they should be training. So the difference we're going to see now, the child has special ruling. So they have to pray, but they're going to be trained at a certain age. Before that, they don't have to pray, they can play. Right? They're going to be playing around. The reason why this is important, the person doesn't have the ahliyah, he doesn't have the qualifications to pray yet. So let's now talk about a child. One of the interesting discussions of fiqh, usul of fiqh and taklif and ahkam, is the child and the rulings that they do when it comes to acts of worship and the rulings they do when it comes to mutual business dealings or transactions. So you have to divide them now. Children, they have a ruling when it comes to the ibadat that they're going to perform and the business transactions or the other kinds of daily transactions they do. So we have to be careful. One does it count, one doesn't count. So ibadah, scholars say, for a child to do the ibadat al-badaniyah, the actual body types action worship like praying, like giving the zakat, expiations, it doesn't count. It doesn't count when they're the age of children being a child until they reach the age of tamyiz, 7. So the first one, a child doesn't have to pray, is not taught to pray, none of that until they reach 7. If they're going to do fasting in Ramadan, many scholars say it goes back to tamyiz, again 7, or even below 7, the age when they have understanding, tamyiz. So some scholars say it's 7, and some say, because the hadith of the Rasul ﷺ, but 7 for the prayer, and some say whenever they reach it. Some children reach it at 5. So when the child reaches tamyiz, they can pray. They don't have to, but they can pray. They don't have to fast Ramadan, but they should fast to get the reward and to practice. If they, for example, give kafara, expiate something, it counts. So where are we going with this? A child, do they have to pray? And at the age of puberty. So they don't meet the shart or shurut al-wujub. You guys said ahkam salah, right? Shurut al-wujub. They don't have to pray. But if a child prayed at 7, shurut al-sihha, it counts. Look at the difference. Shurut al-sihha, it counted. 5-year-old doesn't count, doesn't pray. Doesn't have the capacity to even do wudu. My 5-year-old doesn't know what the left hand from the right hand. Where is he going to start his wudu? His feet. Right? You notice that, right? That's why the Sharia says 7, because some ulama said tamyiz when you know the right hand from the left hand. And that makes sense, because wudu starts like that. But the point is, the 5-year-old, if he wants to pray, he just gets up, mashallah. But no, we're not going to teach him. And we're not going to force him. We're not going to, no, because he doesn't have the wujub or the sihha. So why is this beneficial? For the acts of worship, 7 years old or the age of tamyiz, when we look to see when we start. Only one exception, and was the exception, one act of worship can be exempted. A child can do it as a baby and it will count as reward. Hajj and Umrah. We said that. Hajj, Umrah, child can be a baby. He's Muslim, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, woman say, Ya Rasulullah, is your Hajj rewarded for this child? Is a baby newborn? He said, yes, and you'll get the reward too. So that's the only one, you don't need tamyiz. So children, it can be taken for Hajj, Umrah, counts. The parents get reward. Why is this important for us to know? If a child doesn't pray or prays at underneath the age of puberty, no sins. If they do it, they get reward. Who gets the reward? Them and the parents. That's the benefit. No sins are written down for children until they reach the age of puberty. All the good deeds are written according to the correct opinion. So that helps us to know that a child, when it reaches tamyiz, ibadah. Let's talk about business dealings. When it comes to business dealings, scholars say when it comes to the ibadat, the mu'amalat, maliyah, like zakat, or things like, crimes they did or something like they made a mistake. In this case, right, scholars say that in general, zakat is due on their money because it has to do with the money. So yes, you have to pay zakat for the child. Or the person who, if you made a mistake, the wali will pay for him on that. Right, so that's general. When it comes to what the child does now, like business transaction, doesn't count. Okay, and again, I don't know any court of law that allows a child to sign anything, right? So it's not going to count. But let's say the child want to give sadaqah. Sadaqah will count? They say yes, inshallah. Small things like that, sadaqah, accepting gifts, because they all benefit, there's no harm. A good question would be, you send a child to the store to buy you some juice. Is that aqd sahih? You see, taklif, now it comes. Some say, no, it's too young, but I can't trust him. Some say, no, it's afu, it's small one, it counts. Inshallah it does. Because the urf of the people, generally, we accept that. And it's not small, not big deal. So some of the scholars say things like that, accepting gifts, giving sadaqah, small business dealings, inshallah it counts. But as for the other stuff, it doesn't. And if they get permission from the wali, inshallah it counts. The wali has to get permission. So the child sent by the father, go to the store, buy some milk, it's okay. Because he's going to come back. And back home, that's how it is. You never see the shop owner reject him. Because this is different than the other transaction. But if he's going to say, I'm going to send my child to be the shaheed for the marriage, no, not this guy. Doesn't know what's going on. Right? Doesn't know the matter, right? So here we get that benefit. How about the crimes? Children did something wrong? No punishment on them because they're children. So we benefit. The child has more details than others. How about the majnoon? The next one, the next preventative, insanity. Off the hook. So he doesn't have to pray, doesn't have to fast, doesn't have to do these things. And how about business transactions? And it's not wajib on them. It's a wajib on the person who's responsible for them. If they have zakat, then the wali will pay for them if there is someone who's responsible, a ward over them. Right? And some of them, they say that generally he doesn't have to do it himself because he doesn't have the ability to it. Right? Because usually the person who has this capacity, someone's going to be a ward, a guardian for them. So that's clear. In terms of other transactions, it doesn't count. As for criminal cases, it wouldn't be held accountable for them. Next one, forgetfulness and nisyan wal khata. Forgetfulness and mistake. So this is considered a type of missing of the aql. So have you noticed everything here goes back to those two? Everything we're talking about here goes back to aql and bulugh. So that's the way to remember this. Every one of these has something to do with someone's intellect or someone's puberty, age of puberty, reaching that. So if a person is forgot or they made a mistake, why are they off the hook? Because at that moment they slipped their mind and their heart about the rulings. So his aql wasn't there at that moment. So therefore, he's not mukallaf at that moment. So an example, somebody forgot his salah. At that moment, is he sinful? No. And the scholars then discuss at that moment, when he forgot, he's off the hook because he forgot. But what does he do? He prays when he remembers. That's what the hadith says. So the reason why he's praying again, anyone can explain? I missed salah, dhuhr, I remembered asr. Why I have to pray asr, dhuhr again? Okay, I'm going to do qada, but why do I have to do it? Because I have taklif, I'm mukallaf, I'm aql baghil, but the moment I forgot, I had some slip of the aql. My aql came back, I remembered. That moment I came back to full functioning. Therefore the salah is owing on me. You see, that's why you do qada, because you're aql baghil, you can't just say I'm off the hook. So Allah forgives you from the sin, but not the missing the salah there. That's the benefit we take from knowing that. Another example now, somebody's praying, or someone did something, accidentally broke somebody's car. Hukum taklifi, we're going to say la ya'tham. He's not sinful because he did by accident. But what are you going to do? You have to pay him back or fix his car. Why? Because you damaged the car. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, He makes easy for us these times. So that's how we know that forgetfulness and mistakes, right? Allah doesn't take us account. فِيمَا أَخْطَأْتُمْ بِهِ وَلَكِنْ مَا تَعَمَّدَتْ قُلُوبُكُم. Surah Al-Ahzab. Allah doesn't hold you account for that which you do mistakenly, that which you hold, but rather what you do with your heart, with certainty. Clear? The next one, ignorance. Al-Jahl. So scholars, they say the person is ignorant, it is a preventative. Because the person, even though he had the intellect, and he had the age of puberty, he didn't know about the rulings. So in reality, he was someone who didn't know any better. So he's like one who didn't know. It's like the one who couldn't do. So in many ways, he's missing his qudra in one angle, but also we say the ilm is a condition prior to anything. You have to know, you have to do something. So they exempt it. But when the knowledge comes to the person, whether he's a new Muslim, or recently started practicing, or he was somebody who was generally ignorant about a ruling, now he is mukallaf and that particular ruling. He was still having taklif, but in that angle, he has now learned something. He has to now do that thing. Scholars then they divide the ignorance into two types: that which is known by the deen by necessity, and that which is hidden because of details, it's very minute details. The general rule is, Wallahu a'lam, all of this can be excused by ignorance if someone was truly ignorant. And the scholars, some of them they differ. They say the one who lives in a Muslim country, where scholars and Islamists often talked about, there's no excuse for him not knowing the basics of the deen. Like if he didn't know zina is haram. You live amongst the Muslims, you go to Jum'ah khutbah, you're living, how could you not know that? But if you live in a non-Muslim country, it's possible, they said, because you're far from the deen, far from the place of knowledge. But truth be told, the ulama, when they get into discussion, as we said in the Saturday class, it's very in-depth discussion. And udhr bi-jahl, there's many opinions. And to show you that the more correct view is that if somebody can be ignorant even if they're in a Muslim country. The man who prayed poorly, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught him how to pray. Who was alive at that time? Rasulullah, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, and he didn't know how to pray properly. So that it doesn't make sense. He's in the Mujtama' Nabawi. He's a prophetic society. He didn't know. That shows you, even then, because he never crossed his mind, he's praying badly. That's a better way of looking at it. Somebody his whole life generally never crossed his mind, I'm doing haram. He's actually ma'dur, yeah. He can be ma'dur, yeah. So imagine someone's life, he never knew riba is haram. He's not like the one who thought about it and he said, I forgot about it. No, some people say, I don't know anything. Brother, you don't know anything. You didn't sign that contract. He don't told you. Some people, they can say that. Allah will hold accountable. That's why only Allah knows who's really excused. Because some people say, I never knew. So the ulama, some of them say, if you cross your heart or mind, you're not ma'dur. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So for example, one day something confusing, get to the masjid, ask somebody. For knowledge, you can't just sit there, I don't know. No, you have access to learn. But if you just somebody's whole life, and there's a lot of people like this. Another example, he mentioned Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh, radiyallahu anha. When she was in a state of istihada, irregular bleeding, she didn't pray. How many years? She wasn't praying. Or her sister Hamna or Habiba, or her fellow sister in Islam, 7 years she didn't pray because she didn't know if she's on menses or not. 7 years. So Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah's point is very clear. This is very clear. Some people, they don't know. So the reason I'm saying that the udhr bi-jahl exists. But once someone gets the knowledge now, okay, now you, on that angle you're mukallaf now, right? Because you got that knowledge now. The next one. But one more point though, if somebody is ignorant, and this is ahkam taklifiyya, we get it. How about ahkam wada'iyya? What did we say last week? Then there's no udhr for that, right? So if you broke someone's something by accident, you're off the hook for that. But you have to fulfill the person's right, repay it. Again, there's more detail, but we get the gist of it. The next one, the kuffar. And this is a good one to understand properly. The principle, the kuffar are addressed. They are addressed by Allah ijma'an bil iman. Al-kuffar mukhatibuna ijma'an bil iman. So the kuffar are legally responsible, and they're required by Allah to become Muslim. They have to have iman, even though they don't, many of them. So that's the first one. The kuffar, all the ulama agree, Allah legally responsible that they have to become Muslim. Allah charges them with that responsibility, that they have to become Muslim. So what does that mean? Any kafir you see, what's his number one responsibility? He has to consider Islam and accept it. Because the haqq. That's legally responsible. So that's why if he doesn't become Muslim, he'll be liable for that. But as for the details of the Sharia and its rulings, then they're not liable. They're not mukallaf in that angle in the dunya, but they will be held accountable for Yawm al-Qiyamah if they leave it off. So why the ulama differ on this topic? Go to the ayat. مَا سَلَكَكُمْ فِي سَقَرٍ قَالُوا لَمْ نَكُ مِنَ الْمُصَلِّينَ. The ulama always mention these ayat, Surah Mudaththir. When the people of Jannah ask Jahannam, why are you in hellfire? They say that we never used to pray. A kafir, why are they talking about prayer? They're kafir. So many of the ulama held the view that the kafir is mukhatib and is mukallaf, is legally responsible for the sharia. But the problem is that this ruling is when? When is it happening? Qiyamah. It's not dunya. In the dunya today, if you see a kafir in the street, you're going to tell him, Salah Jama'ah? No. We're going to tell him, you want to accept Islam? Or brother, or so and so, you want to become Muslim? Then come to the masjid. The reason why the ulama differ here, some of them, they use the ayat, they say generally they're mukallaf, so therefore every kafir is supposed to pray, stay away from pork. This is right. But the first one has to become Muslim, then there. And the reason why this is important, the difference of opinion here, if a kafir prayed now, it wouldn't count. So what he has to do first? Become Muslim. As for everything after that, when you become Muslim. And this is more correct, and this has to do with the dunya. So we have difference between ahkam al-dunya and ahkam al-deen. Ahkam al-dunya and ahkam al-deen. Because the reason I mention this is because we're going to just mention one example to show you the difference of opinion here has implications. If we say that the kuffar are liable or mukhatib and they're mukallaf, they're legally responsible in the affairs of the deen and to become Muslim, and for the sharia part then after, then we say then the kafir, we don't have to, nor is it responsible for him while he's a kafir to do the halal and haram. He's mukhatib, he's addressed by Allah to do the halal and haram only after he becomes Muslim. So here we say that when he didn't do it, in the akhirah he'll be held accountable. As for the dunya, then what do we do? Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, others, they say the kafir, when he's in a state of kufr, he's not mukhatab, he's not legally responsible or legally addressed to do the ahkam al-sharia. Rather, he's legally addressed to become Muslim. If he didn't become Muslim, he can't eat pork, he can't wear silk, he can't do those haram things because he's kafir. But once he becomes Muslim, now he has to stop. And that's why you see the kafir generally, he's doing all the haram things in a state of kufr. So to give you an example where this scenario will come, if the kuffar are mukhatibun bi furu', not the usul. Everyone agrees the kafir has been addressed by Allah to become Muslim. Everyone agrees. They differ on that. Well, should he be praying salah? Is he liable? He's liable in the qiyamah, not the dunya. To help you understand, can we sell non-Muslims food during Ramadan? The daytime of Ramadan. I see. This is part of Usul al-Fiqh has athar. The correct opinion, it depends what you believe about this. Whoever says the kuffar are not mukhatibun for the furu', they say you can sell it to him, he's kafir. And whoever says he is, you can't sell it. You see, you guys only heard one opinion. You didn't hear the second one? Well, I'm saying this. Umar was the proof for this discussion. Umar, and again, it's a different opinion, it's not a weak, it's a strong difference of opinion. Umar, when Rasul gave him the silk qamis, when he saw after the Jum'ah, he saw that they're selling silk qamis or like shawls or like thobes. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Umar saw it, and Umar said, Rasulullah, you should buy one of these. He said, it's not for the believer to wear it. So Umar, he took it, and he gave it to his non-Muslim brother. Non-Muslim brother. Why? How? This is where the issue comes. Ibn Hajar explains Fath al-Bari, one explanation. Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah said, no. He gave it to because kafir can wear silk. He's not mukhatib furu' sharia. So the point is, this hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet said, right, he gave it to him and he said, don't wear it, or it's not for us to wear. Then he gave it to his non-Muslim brother in Mecca. That's where the conversation is happening. The reason why it shows the benefit of Usul al-Fiqh, if you said the kuffar are addressed by the furu' sharia, you're not going to give it to him. But Umar did. So Shaykh Ibn Taymiyyah Ibn Qayyim said something's going on here. They're not mukhatib furu' sharia. Otherwise Umar, the faqih, wouldn't do that. Ibn Hajar Fath al-Bari responds, but the jawab is not the strongest. Against the argument they bring, both are arguments, it's not that strong. It's not black and white, but why is this an important issue, brothers? If you're a shop owner in the West, you're gonna open your hot dog stand at nighttime? Right? Anyone eats hot dogs at night? Right? See, some people they have a big problem. Biryani at night for the Muslim, but the kafir is not coming to your business. Or how about if you're selling stuff and you need to open in the daytime? See, this is where the discussion comes. So it goes all the way from fatawa to usul fiqh. It crosses over to the usul. And that's why you can see some of these discussions, the implications are real. Alhamdulillah, it's difference of opinion. You can see both opinions. But now you get it. That's what taklif is important. And the reason I'm saying this is that if someone told you it's allowed to do it, someone says not allowed to do it, now you're like, I get it. I know what he's talking about. You guys with me so far? That's the value of these classes because it allows you to, now you have the working mind of the alim. So now we're not going to become like awam and say, how can the sheikh say it's allowed? Come on. Ahlul ilm, they're not awam, akhi, come on. Right? So the reason I'm just saying this to give you just to understand. I'm not saying that it's necessarily the strongest view only. There are other views. We're only different. To finish, we want to finish now, inshallah, with the last part, which has to do with a few more people who are in this. And these are people who also have fallen short in their taklif, yani something's missing. So the next one, number 5, is sleep. Sleep is also a preventative. Everyone can see why, because when you're sleeping, you don't have your intellect. You say things, you do things you're not supposed to. So it's not mukallaf at that moment. So an example, if someone says in his sleep he divorced his wife, does it count? You should ask the question, why is he in his sleep saying that? SubhanAllah, what's going on in his house? Right? But it wouldn't count. Another example, next one. Someone fell unconscious, al-ighma, unconsciousness or fainting. This person has no taklif also at that moment. Why? Like a sleeping person, it's the same thing, he's gone. No aql. An example would be someone fainted during the daytime of Ramadan. So if you started, so scholars they say that there's a discussion here, but what some scholars argue is that if a person did this, if he started the day fasting and then he fell faint and he woke up at the end of the day fasting, some say it counts because he was fasting for the part he was. But let's put that aside. Let's say somebody fainted for several days and he woke up, it's like day 4 and he's in a coma more than fainting. What is he going to do? Make up 3 days or no? Some say if it's bikhtiyar, if he did it by his own choice, like he told the doctor, give me an anesthetic or I'm doing a surgery, then he has to make it up. If not, he doesn't. Because he has no taklif. This person who chose to do it, he knew that. So فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. But let's say somebody really fell down the stairs, he woke up, it's Ramadan. He's like, so he missed many days, what is he going to do? Okay, keep going. You know, mukallaf all these. Right? See, that's good, right? A kafir, for example, accepts Islam in the middle of the day. That day is already finished. What is he going to do? He's going to fast the next day. How about days he missed? He's Muslim. He became Muslim half the month. Does he make up 15 days? Answer, no, because it wasn't mukallaf. Tomorrow is the first day. You see, that's for da'wah too, da'wah purposes. Because it happens all the time. So like a Muslim first day of Ramadan, all right, this is your first day, and you're going to keep going. You were not mukallaf before that. Next one, number 7, somebody sukr, yani intoxication. This one obviously is haram, but if someone did it, right, intoxicated willingly or using alcohol intoxicants, that this person, the scholars say, it is a preventative for taklif, but the principle, the dabit, أَلَّا يَعْلَمَ مَا يَقُولُ. He has no idea what he's saying. So the person who's considered intoxicated, he has no idea what he's saying. And intoxication means when you cloud your mind على وجه اللذة والضرب, in the form of ecstasy and pleasure, or happiness and pleasure. Intoxication is different than numbing. Some drugs bring you up, some bring you down. The one that brings you up makes you feel all happy and high. This is called the high. This is called sukr. Sukran is drunk. But the one that brings you down, it's not muskir necessarily. It's still haram, but this is called mufattir. They're going down. Right? Some people, they take some stuff, they're going up and down. Right? So we're going to tell them, it doesn't matter where you're going. It's haram what you did. Because some people are going to come and say, it doesn't make me high. Shaykh Islam mentioned, the ulama agree. Any coloring of the mind is haram. Doesn't matter, it brings you up, down. Doesn't matter. Very important, because today we have shubahat, brothers, in the realm. Some awam, some of our youth, they smoke and they do drugs. We say, it doesn't make me high. It doesn't make you know what you're saying. It's going to intoxicate, or it's going to, narcotics, bring you down. Haram. We have to explain this to them. Some of them, astaghfirullah, they're using these drugs, take it this way. So we have to explain to them, it's still haram. The only reason why I mention this, Allah said in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or you believe, La taqrabu salat wa antum سُكَارَى حَتَّى تَعْلَمُوا مَا تَقُولُونَ. Until you know what you say. That's the key. So you know someone's drunk, but he doesn't know what he's saying and he doesn't know what he's doing. Some people, he's high, but it's not 100% high. He's still mukallaf at this stage. Although, it's bad enough that he got there. And of course, the ahkam that come with that, there's a lot of them, but we'll just summarize with this. And the last one, number 8, is a person, well, it's 8 and 9 because they go together. 8, a person, well, actually, we'll do this one first. 8 is a person who's been forced. We already covered that. So that person doesn't have taklif, and the scholars divided into 2. Somebody who's been forced or compelled or under duress in a way that there's a serious, imminent threat that prevents them. And if somebody's threatened them, or they've been under duress, and there's actually no way for them to prevent. So this person has, it's called ikrahun murji. Murji'u means literally, he has no way to prevent it. Like somebody either, it's literally like a tool in the hand of that person. The other one is one that's not, like that. So a person has a capacity to prevent it, but it's still is under threat. Someone threatening to kill you, but they're not necessarily going to kill you, or you're not sure of that. Or someone literally tied you up. Still under these are 2 types. And again, the rulings differ more of it, but we'll not go into it right now because of the nature of our discussion. But you get it. There's categories to the person who's under duress. Not everyone under duress is the same ruling. And the last one we're looking at in number 9 is ghadban. Someone's angry. Is anger a preventative for taklif? The answer is yes. If it is such a high level anger, the person has no idea what they're saying or doing. So someone got so angry, he has no idea what he said or what he did. This person is like someone sleeping. Right? Can someone imagine someone is that furious? And the reason why this can be useful is we'll see that some people, they get that angry. It's haram for them maybe to get angry because they know when they get angry, it gets to this level. But let's say someone went to that level and doesn't know what he's saying, what he's doing. Then there's the anger which is very low. You know exactly what you're saying, you know what you're doing. It's not very high. This person still mukallaf. He's angry, but he knows what he's saying and doing. And then the one in the middle. It's high anger, but it's not too high, it's kind of in the middle. So here the scholars, when they talk about this, they discuss it because the issues of the ruling. So the one whose anger is very low, he's still mukallaf. The one who's very high is like someone who fell asleep, he lost his intellect. And then the one in the middle, he didn't totally lose intellect, but it comes in between him and his intention. This one, the scholars, they say then, if the person who's like this angry, he's angry, quite angry, he led him to do something or say something he didn't intend. And after that, he got very remorseful what he said and what he did. Then this is like somebody who's under duress. Example, someone divorced his wife. Is anger one of the preventatives from divorcing your wife? Yes, it's one of the muwana. So if we ask somebody, if someone said divorce a wife, a question you could ask, how angry were you? Were you angry? She says, yes, so angry I didn't know what I said. Or he might say, I didn't even know I divorced my wife. She said I did it. We tell this person, maybe he's angry that high, okay. Someone else comes and say, I was angry, but I knew what I said, I knew what I did. Then it counts. Someone else say, I was in between. It came between me and my niyyah. I didn't want to say it, but I was angry and then I ended up saying it. And later on, I got remorseful. This happens a lot. Because after he's angry, he's done, he says, oh my, subhanAllah, I divorced my wife. Now he's sad. The reason why this is important is we shouldn't get angry. La taghdab. That's the whole solution. Don't get angry. And when you get angry, just say anything else, but don't say divorce you. Why are you going there anyways? I don't understand that one, right? You can say so many other things, good or bad, but why are you going there? And why is it important? Because some ulama, they're very strict in this angle. Some of them say, no, also, it's not, you have to be in this high level, and it's very hard to prove that. So the reason why I'm showing it, if we do believe there is, and we do believe, it can be a preventative. Last week's class in Nawaqid al-Islam, we mentioned somebody throwing the mushaf on the floor, a book of the deen, out of anger. When the Quran, the hadith, and the deen is there, knowing it's a book. But out of extreme anger, it can be forgiven. Again, same thing here. Why? Because it came between him and his aql. When Musa alayhi فَلَمَّا سَكَتَ مُوسَى الْغَضَبَ أَخَذَ الْأَلْوَاحِ Musa, when he got the anger calmed down, he picked up the alwah. See, that's the point. Because someone said, Musa, what did he do? He was so angry, they're doing shirk. He grabbed Harun by his beard. He couldn't believe it. What's going on here? That shows you that we understand that can be there. But the problem is, Not everybody has that extreme anger, right? It's very dangerous because these are ahkam. In those usul fiqh, the implications are real. To finish today's lesson, now that we understand there's taklif, what it is, and what its preventatives are, and what its conditions, the reason why they come handy, if somebody has to do something by Allah's command, who are we talking about? The mukallaf, who's aqil, baligh, Muslim, who has no preventatives and met the conditions. So somebody who's met the conditions and who's a Muslim, who has intellect, who has reached age of puberty, this person is mukallaf, and he has any preventatives, you take away his taklif, hence he doesn't have to do or don't do until he gets them back. If he doesn't have them all together, then it's gone. And there's degrees also. As you can see, you need both intellect and puberty. So a child has intellect but deficiency in, the fact is not puberty, so he has taklif, or he's mukallaf naqis. That's what they call him. He has taklif but it's deficient. A person who has both is complete, right? Completely legally responsible. If someone in their life lost their intellect, no longer mukallaf. An example, an old man got dementia. Does he pray 5 times a day? If he has no idea what he's saying, doesn't know how to read salah anymore, forgot what rak'ah is in, the Imam has to stand next to him and tell him to pray. He doesn't have to pray. No aql or baligh. It happens a lot. Some people ask, but if he can do some of it, or if he can do, he's there, but he's not perfect, then some ulama say try your best to help them. But there's some people that have like Alzheimer's, gone. They don't pray salah. And he will be praying 1 minute, the next time he's talking to you. Right? And then he goes back to salah, and you're like, subhanAllah. Right? So this person, if you tell him to pray 5 times a day, he doesn't have qudrah. Another example, fasting in Ramadan. Somebody's fasting has diabetes. Doctor says no fasting. In this angle, he's not mukallaf because he's ajiz. He's off the hook, he does the fidya. And these kinds of ahkam. So why we need this to begin with? Next week we're going to talk about ahkam. Haram, halal, all this stuff, wajib. Before getting there, you have to know who's it for. And so to finish, ahkam taklifiyya, if we understand now who's the mukallaf, most of us are mukallaf. So the asl is people are mukallaf. They're Muslim, they have the intellect, which most people have, and they are reached age of puberty, they're mukallaf. The people around you know. Okay, now, next week we're going to look at what are those ahkam, what did Allah address us with? And so we mentioned the 5 rulings, and next week we'll go into them. Number 1, when Allah commands someone to do something and you have to do it, we call it wajib. So Allah told you to do it, you have to do it. That's called wajib. If Allah told us to do it, but He didn't make it a must, as we're going to see next week, it's called mustahab. If Allah didn't command you, Allah told you to stay away from something but not with certainty, avoid it but it's not a must, it's called makruh, disliked. Right? So karaha. And if Allah told us to stay away from something, you have to, this is called haram, and something is haram, prohibited. Mahdhur, if prohibited, or hadar has been made. As for mubah, what's his ruling? Does Allah command or prohibit the mubah? Scholars, they say generally if it's not a commandment to do or not do, al-asl wal ibaha. That's how you know. So it's a hukum by the fact that it's maskut. Allah didn't talk about it. So the benefit behind that, it's like some chapters we know, like besides ibadat, everything, food, drink, life is mubah. So most of them fiqh, as we'll see, usul fiqh revolves around Allah commanded us something, hence it's going to be, if it's a command, it's going to be wajib mustahab. Its prohibition is going to be makruh and haram. Khalas. We're operating between these 4. You with me so far? So it's not too tricky because in the angle that the rulings are limited. So the fact that something's commandment, once you find out, is it halal, is it mubah, is it wajib or mustahab? If it's something Allah says to stay away from it, is it wajib or makruh? Those are the questions of the jurist you're thinking. But we didn't get to the part yet. How do you know something's wajib to begin with? What is the category of wajib? All those have implications. To give us one more example in discussion we're talking about, right? Because we gave some examples, right? So we want to finish with some scenarios as well. We said before, and when it comes to that person who doesn't have the conditions of taklif, still the ibadat, right? If they have the taklif, they have to do ibadat. If they're missing the taklif, they don't have to do it. But when they're in the area where there's that gray area, the origin is, they still have to do it. So an example would be, right, somebody who قدر الله ما شاء فعل, and he smoked something or he drank some alcohol. This person, underneath the influence, does he have to pray? So what we're going to look to see is that this person, does he reach the issue or condition of intoxication? We're going to ask what? Does he know what he says? That's the dabit. Do you know what he's saying? If he says yes, he does, clearly he does, he has to pray, even though it's sinful. Sinful for being that state, but salah is still valid. As we're going to see, the salah is still valid. But the difference between somebody who says, this person intoxicated, doesn't know what he's saying, that person doesn't have to pray. He has to first come out of the high. Because he can't pray. He's going to pray salah, he's going to say all kinds of things. What Fatiha he's going to read, we don't know. Right? He might do something else. So when the person comes, maybe sometimes you smell people, they have something, they smoke something, he still has to pray, because as long as, but the problem is he's sinful. Another example would be somebody who, he fell asleep, or he did something like this. The action which he missed is going to make it up. But sometimes somebody fell into one of these preventatives and he doesn't have to do anything. Let's give an example. We said the ibadat are two types, right? There are commandments and prohibitions, do's and don'ts. So let's say something you have to avoid. Bab turuk, stay away from it. So somebody missed the salah timing. When he woke up, it's salah time, exited. What is he going to do? He's going to make it up. Okay. Somebody else, he was praying salah, and he had najasa on his shirt, the whole salah. Salah is finished. What does he do? Nothing. Doesn't do anything. Because he didn't realize till after salah is done. So someone now can explain. We covered this before, a long time ago in fiqh. Why? Who can explain it now? Someone prays salah, the whole salah, he had najasa on his shirt, he had no idea. He's nasty. He's forgetful. At the salah finished, he found it. Salah counts? Yes. Why? Because he's supposed to stay away from it. He didn't stay away from it. And he did it forgetfully. So his salah counts. He has no sin, because this is from the things you avoid. The next guy who missed the salah because he fell asleep, he woke up, no sin. But what is salah? You have to do. It's a commandment, so get up and pray. Another example, somebody's praying salah, he broke his wudu. He gets out the salah, makes wudu, comes back. Why does he kind of keep praying? Because wudu is a condition you have to do. So here we're going to see later that the difference between something Allah wants you to do and something Allah wants you to avoid has impact. That's why we're going to see later, when you start looking at issues, you're going to ask questions like, okay, somebody did something forgetfully. What did he do? Oh, you missed a condition? Doesn't count. But if you fell into a prohibition, like this one, and Allah didn't want you to do it, the scholars say this kind of person off the hook. And these things we're going to build later on. But right now you at least understand why the ulama are talking about it. He's forgetful in relation to something he should have avoided, but it's already, the harm already is done. And inshallah, just to keep in your back in mind, because some of these things, you need to remember them, to bring back the issues. Another example, someone's fasting in Ramadan, he ate forgetfully. He broke his fast? Why? He was forgetfulness, so he has a udhr. It was a taklif at that moment was lifted from him, and that momentarily he was forgetful. Does he have to make it up? No, he keeps fasting. And the harm is already done. Khalas, he already ate it. It can't come out now, it's done. Okay, so another example, somebody is in a state of ihram, hajj. Accidentally he got a haircut. I mean, it's very hard to do that, right? Because in haram, they're going to ask you, you want a bald or not? You're just going to, he must be really forgetful. SubhanAllah. He lost all of his hair. Then he's like, oh, SubhanAllah, I'm in a state of ihram. What about this guy? His hajj is good? Does he have to do any fidya? No, he's forgetful. So we can see here that these benefits come because we can start exempting people the right way. One more example, somebody now is a child. They made a mistake in their salah or something. What do? We do irshad wa ta'aleem. We teach them. Right? We teach them. If they made a mistake and they're underneath the age of puberty, they're not sinful. So we teach. We try to explain. If you wanted them to, if a parent wants them to redo it, to teach them, that's different. But do they have to do it? If a child doesn't fast, it's bad. But they're not sinful. As long as the parents are trying to teach them and the child is just falling short. So it gives the parents the responsibility. They're trying, but some children it's hard for them. Inshallah, we'll end with this much. Next week we're going to get to the ahkam, which are very important. Bismillah ta'ala. If anyone has any questions, inshallah ta'ala, we'll take them. Yes. So the principle regarding taklif, which one? So we said that the taklif then is al-khitab, the address, with بِأَمْرٍ أو نهي, someone being addressed with a command or prohibition. This is what taklif is. And then a person who's mukallaf then is a person who's al-baligh, al-aqil, al-muslim. Right, Muslim the third one because we saw the kafir isn't. And the benefit behind it, the qa'idah, مقصود الشارع, the intent of the legislator, من جميع الأوامر والنواهي, by all commandments or from all prohibitions, is تحصيل المصلحة, to bring about benefit, or دفع المفسدة, or to deflect the harms, and any harm or difficulty, that's in it, is not intended by the legislator. Means there is some difficulty, but it's not intended. It comes with it. And the only reason why there's difficulty in it, so Allah can reward us and punish us. No taklif, no thawab. No taklif, no jaza. Hence, when we think about punishment, we always think about why someone's going to Jannah. Because of what he used to do of the good and stay from the bad. Why someone goes to Jahannam? مَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ, because what you did and did not do, after Allah told you to do it, not to do it. You see, that's when you talk to a kafir, you have to explain to him, why should I get punished? You didn't do what Allah told you to do. You didn't do what Allah told you to do. Why didn't you do it? And he might say, I didn't know. And that's the question, said, you really didn't know? And that's why you have to give him da'wah. But imagine today someone said, I shouldn't get punished. No, you've been told to do something you didn't do. And that shows you again, the ulama when talk about taklif, it's why it's such an important part to help renew somebody's intention to do more. Because you know that it comes with a reward. And you know it comes with responsibility. Just like in the law we have here. And the world we live in today, to get the prizes and rewards, hard work. To get punishments, right? You do the crime, you're only going to pay with time, right? That's what you're going to do. Right? Anyone has any questions? Yes? So that's the thing. The reason why there's some difficulty is a test, the ikhtibar. Ibn Aziz al-Hanafi rahimahullah explains this in Tahawiyya, Sharh Tahawiyya, mentioned that the difficulties, if there's no taklif or ibtila, like testing, except in the dunya, and the testing is by way of taklif. So taklif and ikhtibar go together. You're tested by Allah's commandments and prohibitions. And in relation to how you did, you get reward and punishment. So the idea behind it, for Jannah to be a valuable reward, you have to have struggled and you have to pass the test. What is the test? Number one, you're legally responsible. And number two, Allah's going to see how well you held up to it. Just like right now, for me to give you a good mark in a test, I had to first put you in the test room, put you in a test, put you in some kind of test, then I'll give you the good mark or bad mark. In the dunya, we have that. In the deen, there is. The taklif, you're responsible. That's why when you talk to people, you can see how this will play out. And that's why it's so beautiful, because the taklif, it comes from fiqh and aqidah. A test is, do you believe in this or you don't believe in it? Are you going to do what I told you? You're not going to do it. You're making a choice. And that's why somebody cannot say, I didn't know. And so for some reasons, we can see the sharia, the difficulty there, some of the difficulty to test our will to see if we're going to earn Jannah. But it's never a difficulty we can't bear. Hence the ulama also say this mashaqqa is always either is less or it's not very overwhelming, it's very less, it's doable. For example, Jannah is being surrounded by the makarih, that which people dislike naturally. Why? Because of the test. So it makes sense. It's very important. It's a deep concept because it helps to understand, help non-Muslims understand why are they not doing good, or why they should be punished if they don't continue the way they're doing it. But also why the Muslim deserves reward. Because look at what we're doing, right? Every day. Yes? So how much do they need to know about Islam? They have to know the basics of the deen, right? So someone doesn't need to know very big details. They have to know like Tawheed, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but they have to know the true message. Islam is sahih. Some people, they don't get the true Islam. So that's the problem. So we're not going to say someone's become a scholar, but someone has to know, like, with some basic reasons and proofs, whether aqli or naqli, that Islam is true, the Quran is the book of Allah, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the true prophet, and alhamdulillah, there's lots of resources. But there are people out there who have never been presented the true Islam. We have to accept this. There are some people who don't know. There are also some people who have received Fox News type of Islam. So that guy is not, if you reject it, we're all going to reject it. That's not Islam. Fox News Islam is not Islam. So some people also, they're living in a place where access to people who actually can teach them is limited. But you're right. That's why the ulama say the person who's Ahl al-Fatra will be excused on al-Qiyamah. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah says that it depends on place and time, and only Allah knows truly who they are. So we're not going to deny that they exist. We believe that, but we're not going to say this guy is, that guy isn't. Allah knows. Right? So, but it also helps us with da'wah. Because we have to do our job by passing the message to people. That's why we need to be active as well. And ask questions. Yes. Can someone do qada if do not legislate excuse? This is a different opinion amongst the scholars. Because some of the ulama said to do qada, to make up something, you need to have an excuse. There's a sabab as to why you didn't do it. An excuse. So just like we have an excuse to not do something, then there's also the reasons for you to do it. So for example, the ulama say if someone didn't pray salah on its due time, so salah is a long time, you have an open window, someone didn't pray. First question we're going to ask, what was the reason? The Jumhur ulama say, yes, he has to pick it up because salah is something owing between him and Allah. But the other group, Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, others, they say, and many of our contemporary scholars, you can't. Why? Just like you can't pray salah before time comes in, the sabab for salah coming in is the change of time, the sky, like this, where the sun is. Likewise, you can't pray before time, you can't pray after time. Illa bi'udhr. Right? So for example, can I pray salah beforehand? So how can I pray a moment after time? And Taymiyyah said, no, the sabab to pray time is when the sun comes to the zenith, past the zenith. Now it's time for dhuhr. When the sun passed all the way to asr time, who gave you the right to pray asr dhuhr at that time? So really the stronger view is you can't. Because in order to do qada, you have to have proof that you could do it. The qada is not just something you're allowed to do. Now some of the ulama say you have to do it as a type of recompense for when you made a mistake. But what seems to be stronger is you repent, and you don't do that again. So Shaykh something mentioned someone broke the fast for no reason. You can't just make it up whenever you want. Fasting has a waqt, as we're going to see next week, which is muwassa', is spacious. Once you miss that time, that's it. Next, you can't do it. And this is stronger and more consistent because today we have many people who have that impression, I can just do qada. You can't just do qada. What's the point? Asbab, it is qada. Asbab, for example, salah time, from the shurut of salah, is time coming in. You missed the time coming in, then you pray salah. So you didn't pray dhuhr at the right time, we're doing it without an excuse. Hence the ulama say the person who has legislative excuse, he's not doing qada, he's doing adah. You see, when you wake up fajr late, you're doing adah, take your time. You woke up, you're ma'adhur, you make wudu nicely. Sun is rising, doesn't matter, Allahu Akbar, you pray. Yeah? Why? Because you can pray the fard salah even if the sun is rising, ala sahih al-aqwal. Because you're doing adah, and you can pray fard salah anytime. That's the most correct opinion. Even the time nahi shadid, the sun is rising, setting, you still can pray. Because fard salah is very important. There's a big difference of opinion on this topic, but that's a stronger view. But the ulama, they say and they discuss it. A person woke up late, someone forgot the salah. He's doing adah. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, they all woke up late for Fajr. What did they do? They made wudu, they did the 2 rak'ah sunnah. You see, what are they doing? They're doing adah, taking their time. Me, yes, wake up, oh, you're going to hurry up. Hey, you fell asleep, right? But of course, if you did tafriq, somebody is mufarrat, he just fell asleep after the alarm clock went, and still, that's not good. But the point is, this is the difference between this topic. But the problem we have today, we need to teach the awam, you can't do qada whenever you want. We have to tell them that, you can't do that. Inshallah, we'll end with this much. Subhanakallah bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.